L'chaim u'lebracha, dear brothers and sisters, Ropshetz Chassidic wherever you are, this year we have an extraordinary opportunity on Shevat to finally knock the ball out of the park, put an end to the gullus, and welcome in the ultimate time we're all been waiting for. Very unique opportunity. Today is 68 years since the Rebbe was Makabel dynasty, since the Rebbe became Rebbe in Tav Shin Yud Aleph. And let's see what the Rebbe said when it was 68 years to the Friediger Rebbe's Nesius on Beis Nisan, on Tav Shin Mem Ches. But before we do that, when we take a look at when the Rebbe was Makabel dynasty, when the Rebbe became Rebbe, by saying the Maayon Basi Lagani, what did the Rebbe say? So here he said like this: what's important to us is what the Rebbe says is demanded of us. After he speaks about the seven tzaddikim, he says, what is demanded of us, Dor Hashvi, the seventh generation, the Chol Hashvim Chavivim, we're the most important, most precious, we should say, generation of all the time, even though whether we didn't ask for it, we didn't want it, but this is Bashgacha Pratis, we were chosen for this. And what is that? I'm not saying every word, I'm just skipping so that Ligmar Hamshachas HaShechina. It's our job to complete the bringing of the Shechina down, B'tachtonim Dafka, all the way down in this world. In Perek Ches, the Rebbe uses again that same language of V'zeh toivim mikol echad mi'itanu. This is what is being requested from each and every one of us. Sheyedu, that they should know. We should know as megefinzich in Dor Hashvi, that we find ourselves in the seventh generation. What does that mean? We should know that we're in the seventh generation, and it is demanded of us. Of course we know we're in the seventh generation. I mean, if you count, the Rebbe is becoming the seventh Rebbe, so there are seven tzaddikim, so of course we're the seventh generation of Chabad. The Rebbe is saying we should know that we're the seventh is something very deep. He's saying like this: what's the project? What's Chabad all about? What was Chassidus, what was the Alter Rebbe all about? These are the seven tzaddikim paralleling the first seven tzaddikim. Their job is to bring the Shechina down from the seventh heaven to earth. So there's only seven tzaddikim who bring the Shechina from level. Being there's only seven heavens, so there's the seventh Nasi brings, and the seventh generation brings the Ebershter, the Shechina down from the seventh heaven down to earth. What does it mean bringing Hashem down to earth? So of course it means the spreading of Yiddishkeit across the globe. Of course it means all the millions of Miftzayim and Tefillin and all the extraordinary things Lubavitch has done and all the thousands of Chabad houses and all the moizdas that are out there and everything that we've done, the unbelievable. We've done what no one else has ever achieved. But it means more than that because it's compared to the first seven generations. When we take a look at Moshe Rabbeinu, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, brought them the Torah, and then built a Mishkan. But not only we constructed the Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu brought that the Shechina should come down and dwell in the Mishkan. Ukvoid Hashem mila es Mishkan. The honor of the glory of Hashem actually filled the Mishkan. So when we say that it's our job to complete Hamshachas HaShechina, means that our job is not done until we actually have a third Beis HaMikdash. Mashiach is revealed. Yidden are out of Gullus. We have a third Beis HaMikdash. Ukvoid Hashem molei es HaMikdash. That the glory of the Eibishter fills the Beis HaMikdash to the eyes of everybody, and the entire world should see. That's the job. And the Rebbe is telling us there's no other generation. We're the generation that has to complete it, and we have to complete it all the way to the very end. Problem is, we find ourselves now in a situation where we have not yet gotten to that. That means there's still something that needs to be done. We've been breaking our heads for the longest time. What do we still need to do? So the question is like this. We see that the Rebbe took us our hand, and led us through step by step. The Rebbe built it. The Rebbe is our general, our leader, our king. He led us step by step through every single thing that we need to do. Now in Tafshin Nun, the Rebbe said to us something extraordinary. The Rebbe actually said that I'm giving you right now Besuras HaGeula, that the time of redemption has arrived. And he didn't say it once, he said it many times. He called it the Shana Shemelech HaMashiach Niglo Boy, the year that Mashiach is revealed. It's the time when that the Higiyas Makulaschem. It's a besura. It's not a maybe. It's not a tefillah. It's not. It would be a good. It's a wonderful time. No, the time of the redemption has arrived. In Tashin Nun Aleph, in Parsha Shoiftim, the Rebbe went so far. Learn the Sikha yourself, but learn it happily. Learn it with joy. Learn it with excitement. Learn it with depth. Learn it with the footnotes. The Rebbe over there explains how Nevuah returns before Mashiach comes. The Rebbe says all the Rabbeim are the beginning of the fulfillment of the return of Nevuah. They are Nevi'im, and that he is telling us, B'toras Navi, as a Navi, this Besuras Agniula, that he's telling it us as a prophecy. And he goes so far as he actually says what prophecy means. That it's a communication, that he receives this from God, from Hashem himself that spoke to him. And the Rebbe over there footnotes that we should look in the mind of the Alter Rebbe, where the Alter Rebbe explains there's a difference between a Chacham and a Navi. A Chacham, a wise man, sees things and sees certain godly realities, but it doesn't necessarily have to translate in this world. A Navi is unique because a Navi, the main thing of a Navi is that he brings it into speech. If he brings it into speech and he says it, it means that the divine message came into the physical and took on a physical reality, and therefore it's not possible for it to change. This is the way it is and it cannot change. But then the Rebbe is saying, after that Sikha, unbelievable, the Rebbe then continues, the Rebbe is saying, so why? So why is Mashiach not here yet? We have already Higiyas Magulaschem. The time of the redemption is here. It seems like everything from above is already ready. So what's wrong? So here's a stunning revelation. Pashas Noach. Not from me, from the Rebbe. Pashas Noach. Tavshin Nun Beis. The Rebbe is by the Fabrenim. The Rebbe shocks us all by saying as follows, that the work that it was needed from the Jewish people to bring Mashiach, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Perek Lamed Zayin, we're all familiar, that Bias HaMashiach is dependent on Maseinu V'Avodeseinu, our work and our labor, Kol Zman Meshech HaGolos, of all the time of exile, all the accumulated work of all the Jewish people, that work has been completed. An amazing statement. Who can say that but someone who knows the deepest secrets? So he knows, and he says, all the work that was necessary for the Jewish people to do, all the Torah and mitzvahs, all the birani tzutzis, all the sparks, everything was done. And the Rebbe says, even though everybody has personal rectifications and things that they still need, not their own personal avodah, that they can improve, that they can do better, the Rebbe says it's private business. That has nothing to do with the work that the Jewish people needed to bring the Geula. Therefore, the Rebbe says, the only thing that's left is something that's not dependent on us, it's dependent on Mashiach himself. Meaning, what's necessary now? Mashiach needs to reveal himself. It's now up to Mashiach for Mashiach to reveal himself. But that doesn't mean, the Rebbe says, we go to sleep. So we need to do a special avodah to cause Mashiach to reveal himself. What is that? The Rebbe suggests we should do Kiddush Levana. Kiddush Levana. What's Kiddush Levana? So we go outside, we sanctify once a month, we should do it, but the Rebbe says we should do it beautifully, dressed in our best, finest clothing. And he says, why Kiddush Levana? Because Kiddush Levana is Kabbalah's Pnei HaShechina, and Shechina is related to Malchus, to kingship, and ultimately Malchus being David. That's why by Kiddush Levana we say, David Melech Yisroel Chai V'Kaya. And the Rebbe brings the pasuk over there, which we say by Kiddush Levana, that it should be fulfilled in us, the pasuk that says, Uvikshu es Hashem Elokehem, they will seek out Hashem their God, that's David Malcolm and David their king. The Rebbe says that's what we need to do. So let's take a look in those pasukim and see what does that mean. Uvikshu, it's a pasuk in Hosea. So the pasuk in Hosea, good old Navi. So what does it say over here? In pasuk Hey, Paragimel pasuk Hey, Achar Yashuvu b'nei Yisroel, after the Jewish people will return, that means at the end of exile, we will return already to Eretz Yisrael, which in a sense has happened already, to a certain degree of course. Uvikshu es Hashem Elokehem, they will seek out Hashem, which also happened because thousands of Jews returned to Torah and mitzvahs. As David Malcolm, and then we will seek out David HaMelech. That's what it says in the Pasuk. Take a look what Rashi says. Tana Mershem Reb Shimon bar Yochai. It says in the name from Reb Shimon bar Yochai, there are three things the Jewish people rejected in the days of Shlomo HaMelech's son, Rechavam. They rejected the Malchus of Hashem, they rejected Malchus Beis David, and they rejected the Beis HaMikdash. And that's what Reb Shimon Yochai says. Then Rashi brings, Amar Reb Shimon ben Menasya. Reb Shimon ben Menasya says, Ein marin simen toiv Yisroel. They will not show a simen toiv. The simen toiv being a good sign, which is what? The ultimate simen toiv or mazel toiv. We will not have the Geula till when? Ache yachzuru the yavakshu shlashtam. We have to return and request all these three things. And Rashi derives it from the pasuk, how we have to request all these three things. Who are we requesting it from? It seems like we're requesting it from the Eibishter. Says the Mitzuda is David. Okay, Mitzuda is again top Mefarish on Navi. As David Malcolm, very reliable. V'gam yivakshu es melech HaMoshiach. That when we're going to ask for David HaMelech, it means we're going to come to Melech HaMoshiach. Haba mizera David, that comes from David. That's what it says we're going to ask David. It doesn't mean we're asking David HaMelech. We're asking Melech HaMoshiach, who's a descendant of David, Umei Imai, and from him, Yivakshu She'elasam. They're going to petition him, they're going to request of him, Kihu Yimshel Behem, that he should rule over them. Imagine the schus of whoever merits this, to be from the ones who are going to ask Melech HaMoshiach to please be the king over the Jewish people. And that's the toichen of Kiddush Levana. We're turning to Malchus Beis David, and we're asking for the Malchus of Beis David to reveal itself. If this is not enough in Parshas Noach, the Rebbe spells it out in Parshas Vayera. 2 or 3 Farbrengens later, the Rebbe, or 2 Farbrengens later, the Rebbe says like this, that since in every generation there is a potential Mashiach, that's brought from the Bar Tanura. Then he says from the Chassam Sofer that Mashiach is actually a person alive amongst the Jewish people, and he waits, and Hashem has to communicate to him. When the time of the redemption comes, Hashem communicates to him to go redeem the Jewish people. Being that the previous Rebbe had already said we finished all the work, and the whole Avodah was done, so it's understood, the Rebbe said that now, not only do we have the Metzias of Mashiach, the existence of Mashiach in the world, but we actually even have the Hisgalus of Mashiach. We even have Mashiach revealed already. The Rebbe says, but what's the Avodah? The only thing that's necessary is the connecting, the Hiskashrus, the bonding of Mashiach to the people. We have to bond, Mashiach has to connect to the people. And in the next Farbrengen, in Parshas Chayesara, this is unbelievable. At that Farbrengen, the Rebbe sat with his generals. The Rebbe is building the entire world. The Rebbe is building all of Lubavitch, but building the whole world. But so much of the Rebbe's concentration goes into his army of Shluchim. This Kinnis HaShluchim, Ha'ilami, the last Kinnis HaShluchim. The Rebbe is sitting by Farbrengen, talking with all the Shluchim. And the Rebbe says to them, now there's a shlichus update. It's like in your phone or on your apps, you get from time to time an update, an upgrade. The Rebbe says shlichus has been upgraded. And after an incredible discussion of how shlichus works, the Rebbe goes on to say, what's the update? The Rebbe says, now all the shluchim have a new avodah in their shlichus. That is, let me quote it from inside, so we know what I'm not making this up, I'm not saying anything of my own. I'm just sharing with you the words that the Rebbe said. He first brings what I mentioned earlier, the Piyah Yadua, that in every generation someone is born from Zera Yehuda, who could be Mashiach, and then he brings from the Chassam Sofer, whatever, and then based on Piyah Yadua, Kavod Kedushas Marichami Abba, based on what the Friediger Rebbe said, HaShliach HaYachid Shebedereinu, the only Shliach in our generation, meaning the only emissary from God to this generation, VaHaMashiach HaYachid Shebedereinu, and the only Mashiach in this generation. And I don't have to tell the Chabad Chassidic when the Rebbe talks about the Friediger Rebbe, he and the Friediger Rebbe are completely bond together as one. Shekvar Seimu as Kol Anyanim. We finished everything. How do I move on? That's what the Friediger Rebbe said. Shemaschel Yizkaya Mashlach Nabi Tishlach is now starting already to fulfill this mission, Shlach Nabi Tishlach, that the Eibishter has sent Mashiach already to take the Jewish people out of exile. And the Rebbe spells it out. Hashlichus shel Kavod Kedushas Marichami v'Admor. The shlichus of the previous Rebbe, again him and the previous Rebbe as one. Umezeh movement from here it's understood. Shadavar hayachid shenishar achshel b'avodas hashlichus. The only thing that's left over for the shluchim to do, who lekabel es pnei Mashiach tzedkeinu b'payil mamish, is to receive Mashiach in the literal sense. So that what? So he should be able to do shlichus. Some people will argue, why is it important to know who he is? Why is it important to actually, we said, what does Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach mean? The Rebbe brings the pasuk of Vikshu as David Malka. It means to petition Mashiach. It means for people to go to him and to petition and ask the king to be the king. That's how you do it. If you think about it, when David HaMelech became Melech, when David HaMelech became king, he had a divine appointment. Shmuel HaNavi had already given him the Shem and Amishcha, but if you take a look in Shmuel Bey's Perek Hey, it says how the Zekanim came to David HaMelech, the elders and the Jewish people from all over, and they said to him that we are your flesh and we are your bones. We're committed to you, and be our king. And only then David HaMelech actually became the Melech. Notice he's a potential, he has all the qualities of kingship, he has all the energy from above, but he's not the Melech yet. So those who might argue say, why do we have to say, who he is and identify a person? Let's just leave it to whenever it's going to happen. This is what the Rebbe says. We have to accept Mashiach so that he should be able to do his shlichus, the poil and the literal, and take the Yidden out of exile. Why? Because Rambam says that the Geula has to come from a king. So we need Yamoid Melech. We need a king. So he has to be a king. How does Mashiach become a king? We need Mashiach to be a king. What makes Mashiach a Melech? That's dependent on us. We need to crown him as a Melech. And the Rebbe says, Vakavana b'pashtus. He goes on that in some spiritual way. He says, in this kinnis shluchim, we have to have achlotas tevis, how every shliach needs to prepare himself, the people in a city, l'kabbalas p'nei Mashiach tzedkenu, to receive Mashiach. Through what? It's through teaching his community about Mashiach. In other words, teaching the community about Mashiach, you see clearly from the Sikha, learning Mashiach, teaching Mashiach, that's not Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach. That's the preparation. We have now the information what Mashiach is all about. If people, even learned people, don't know this subject, a lot of people didn't learn it. So for sure, unlearned people, Chabad houses are dealing with Yidden that are very, very beginners. So if they don't know anything about Mashiach, so of course, we need to study it and share with them and explain it to them, and so that they will also be ready. L'Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach. This is what the Rebbe told us clearly needs to be done. And here's the thing: maybe the Rebbe meant what he said and said what he meant. So we're thinking like we did all the instructions, and we followed the Rebbe and everything. But in the end, Mashiach isn't here, and we're always complaining and we're kvetching and we're crying and we're screaming at Masai, which is all legitimate. So what happens if you go and you get you buy a something that you have to assemble and put together, and it involves some electronic device, and you work and you put together all the pieces and everything, and then you go through the manual, the instructions of what needs to be done, and then the last instruction is you have to plug it in, but you bring it back to the store and you say it's not working, and they say, did you try plugging it in? The Rebbe told us after all the things that he's done with us, at the end we have to plug ourselves in to the Malchus of Mashiach. The problem is that after all these incredible sikhs, and lots of the Chassidim were inspired and were kind of getting the message of what the Rebbe wanted, we ended up with a situation of Chav Zayin Adar, and another Chav Zayin Adar, Rahman al-Islam, and then we ended up with Gimel Tammuz, and that kind of threw us off. I think now we take a moment and we think as follows. Number one, first of all, we all appreciate that if we look through history, we see every crucial moment of every time when something of major significance happened, there's always Nisyayos. There's always tests. We see it by the Matan Torah, afterwards with the Egel and so on and so on. Then we're going to Eretz Yisroel, we see with the Meralim, there was always tests. Can you imagine when it comes to the Makkah B'Patish? Makkah B'Patish means the last and final act that we need to do in order for Mashiach to come. Of course there is going to be an Asayah. Of course it's going to be difficult. Of course it's going to be challenging. That's number one. Secondly, we need to appreciate that it says already in Rambam, it says already in Rabbeinu Bechaya, it says already in various different Svarim, it relates already very clearly that when Mashiach will come, he will be revealed, he will be concealed, and then he will reveal himself again in the end of Parsha Shemos. That's what it says again in Ramban, Rabbeinu Bechaya, very reliable sources. But I think what was very unique was when I found, because you might argue and say, well, Moshe Rabbeinu was hidden for how long? For 6 months, and now it's already 25 years. So first of all, that Golos was 200 years. This Golos is already close to 2,000 years. It's 10 times as long. Almost. Shouldn't be 10 times, but close to 10 times as long. And so, but take a look at Rashi. Rashi says at the end of Daniel, the Ashrei HaMachaka, the pasuk says, how fortunate is the one that waits. Ashrei, how fortunate is the one who's going to wait it out. So Rashi says, what's this fortunate? Those who are going to wait it out to the end. Sure, all the Yidden, there are going to be a lot of Jews, going to be from the Yidden, Shemer, Torah, Mitzvahs. What does it mean fortunate are those that are going to wait it out? So Rashi gives a number of amount of years that I don't want to say. You can look up the Rashi itself. It's too long for me to bear and for anybody to think. It's more time that we've been, and Chas v'Shalom, I don't want to, we definitely don't have to wait it out to the end. We can make it come much earlier. So Rashi says, Noisafim al cheshben ha'elyon, she'asid, that more than the previous cheshben, she'asid mishichenu lehiskasois achar shenigla. Our Mashiach will be concealed after he will reveal himself. He will be hidden. Why did all these rabbis, why did Rashi, Rabbeinu Bechaya, Ramban, Arizal, Zoyar tell us about this darkness that happens after Mashiach comes and then he is concealed? If not for our time, that we should know this. And we shouldn't lose our mind, we should know what we need to do. So, therefore, what are we doing? Here's the most exciting thing. In Tafshin Mem Ches, Beis Nisan, it is 68 years of the Nesius of the Friediger Rebbe. The Rebbe tells us something stunning. The Rebbe says that the relationship of the Rebbe and the Chassidim is a melech and his people, a king and his people. And the Rebbe says a melech is what? The melech is the heart. Melech is the lave of the people. Why is the melech compared to a heart and not to a brain? So the Rebbe says because the heart pumps the very life of a person. It gives the juice of life. Blood. That means that a Rebbe, a Nasi, gives his people their very life. And we know that. Our very energy, all of our spiritual inspiration, but even our physical energy, it all comes from our Nasi. We live for our Rebbe. Rebbe gives us our energy. All that Lubavitch does, everybody knows, is with the power and with the inspiration and with the direction, even today after Gimel Tammuz, from the Rebbe. We all see that with our eyes. But the Rebbe says that there is a relationship, it's a two-way street. Just like the Rebbe pumps the chayos, the energy, the very life to his Chassidim, to the king, to his people, the people need to return that chayos back to him. Because how does the heart pump? The limbs pump the blood back or send the blood back to the heart, energizing the heart. And that's how the heart can continue functioning as a heart. So the Rebbe says, in order for the Rebbe to be in order for the Melech to act as a Melech, the people need to give him life. What's the life that they give him? They give him their very blood. How do they give him their very blood? They give him their very hiskashrus by saying, Yechi HaMelech. Long live the king. In other words, by recognizing him, that he is their king, and by submitting themselves to his kingship, that's how they make him, that's how they give him his very life. And it seems like from the Rebbe that he's pleading with us, that the Nasi needs our life. It says about Mashiach that he doesn't have any life. He begs by the Eibishter, Chaim Shalom, he's asking for life. And the Rebbe says, Chassidim and the Am, the people, have the power to give the Rebbe his very life, and by doing that, then they accomplish Hikitsu v'ranenu shoichnei ofar, that they will awaken those that are, meaning bring about a resurrection of the Friediger Rebbe, and Ab the Hikitsu v'ranenu David Malka Mashiach. We will cause Hikitsu v'ranenu David Malka Mashiach. That we cause Mashiach to be fully active, fully alive, and have the strength to redeem the Jewish people. Therefore, what should we do this good, Yud Shvat? We have the opportunity right now. We're setting up a petition online. The Eibishter gave us today koiches, unbelievable. Mashiach koiches. Internet was created just for Mashiach. This whole concept of petitions, I am sure, was only created for the ultimate petition. This is the petition that we have to send to Melech HaMashiach. So this Yud Shvat, let's get together, all of us. It's thousands upon thousands upon thousands. Let's try to get it as far as we can. Start with a few hundred, thousands. Imagine if we can send the Rebbe a petition and say to the Rebbe, okay, we made you already Nasi for Lubavitch 68 years ago. we pointed at how did we appoint the Rebbe at that point. We all petitioned him. We asked the Rebbe. We came to him. We pleaded with him. We said, Rebbe, be our Nasi. And then the Rebbe accepted that Nasius. And he became the Nasi. First, he declined it. But when we didn't stop relentlessly, we kept on asking him. Then finally, on Yud Shvat, the Rebbe was Makabel the Nasius. But the Rebbe told us in Nun Beis that we have to upgrade that. Now it's not just Rebbe of Lubavitch, but it's Rebbe and Melech for the entire world. And he needs his Chassidim, he needs his people to do it for him. So therefore, let's just do it. Let's do it all together. So we have a petition online, or it's going to be connected to this video. Go online and do this seriously. Wash your hands. If you're wearing a gartel, then put on a gartel. Sit down the with Rosh, and the Pnimius HaNefesh sign the petition. Read it. You can read it in Hebrew. You can read it in English. Sign that petition. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to run on the street. You don't have to publicize. You might be uncomfortable with that. It's not about that. This is private. This is amongst us Lubavitch Chassidim, even though in as much as today's days we can be private. We'll all sign that petition. And that means you're accepting upon yourself the malchus of the Rebbe. And today, and we're going to do it, we're going to give it in 2 or 3 shifts. As many as we can deliver today before Shkia, when it's still Yud Shvat, we'll deliver it both to the oil and we'll deliver it to 770, to the Rebbe Stender. All the names, we'll print them out. Again, you don't have to even put your last name. You can put just you and your mother's name if you're worried, whatever, if you're uncomfortable. Put you and your mother's name. When no one's going to check the emails, we're going to take all those names, give it to the Rebbe, and then we're going to continue a second time on Thursday because it's Yud Aleph. And we're going to bring it, which is the date associated with the first day of the Rebbe's Nasius on Thursday. Before Shkia, we'll try to get so many more signatures, and we're going to continue this campaign. We'll give it to the Rebbe on Tu B'Shvat, final, and we'll hopefully have thousands of Chassidim that are Mamlech, the Melech, like the Rebbe himself asked of us to do, and we'll do it with tremendous simcha, we'll do it with joy, and I have no doubt that this will be a powerful, powerful Pa'ula. Who knows if this is mamish the last thing that is necessary, and Be'ezus Hashem, we will dance into the third Beis HaMikdash with Moshiach Tzidkenu, L'chaim U'Lebracha.